Welcome to our RTI mock meeting. My name is Stephanie Apollonio and I'll be playing the general education teacher.
I'm Paula Ullman and I'll be playing the school psychologist.
I'm Diana Carvalho and I'll be playing two roles, Miss Carvalho the principal and Miss Jones the special education teacher.
I'm Kimberly Montemiro and I will be playing the occupational therapist.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our follow-up RTI team meeting. We are meeting with you all today to continue to further discuss concerns that we have about our third grade student, Jake Smith, who is currently in the Tier 2 stage of interventions for his behavioral needs. The data we will be looking in order to make informed decisions are from the following assessments: the Cognitive Abilities Test, the Ames Web Math Computation, Math Concepts and Applications, Connors Teacher Rating Scales, and the DRA2.
The purpose of this meeting is for all of us to work together to come up with practical ideas to help the student to be more successful in school. My name is Miss Ullman and I am the facilitator for today's meeting. The recorder is Miss Montemiro. She is the occupational therapist in our school. The timekeeper is Miss Apollonio and she is the general education teacher. The administrator for today's meeting is Miss Carvalho, the principal of our school.
You can expect this meeting to last about 45 minutes. By the time you leave, you should have a complete student intervention plan put together to address all concerns.
In order to accomplish everything we need to accomplish and utilize our time together, we will follow a structured problem-solving model, which includes assessing your concerns about the student and selecting the one or two most important student concerns for today's meeting, what interventions, strategies are already being put in practice and their effectiveness, set specific student goals for improvements, design an intervention plan with strategies, and share this information about the plan with the students' parents since they're not present today.
As the student's teacher, you are the most important participant in this meeting, so please let us know at any time if you have questions or suggestions. This meeting will only be a success if you feel the intervention ideas that we offer are feasible for you to do.
Yes, of course, I'm open to any suggestions or feedback that you're all able to provide me at this time.
Our meeting notes will document the students' referral concerns and the intervention plan that we developed today. These notes may be shared with others who are not here today, including other school personnel. However, we ask that everyone here keep the conversations that take place at this meeting confidential. We will now begin with Ms. Apollonio's concerns.
Well, thank you all for joining us today. My main concern is that Jake's behaviors have not been improving. It continues to not only affect his academic work, but it also disrupts the concentration and academic work of the other 23 students that are in my class. With the diagnosis of Jake's ADHD, I have observed many oppositional defiant behaviors in and outside of the classroom. They're extremely difficult to manage while the other students are trying to complete their work.
So, what behaviors have you continued to see in the classroom?
Well, I continue to witness Jake's chronic aggression towards his classmates. He has frequent outbursts due to frustrations, especially when others overstep his personal space. I've been tracking these outbursts and any other disruptive behaviors in my data collection binder, which I've brought with us today. In addition, I also have anecdotal notes based on the events and discussions that I've had with Jake and any of the other classmates that are affected. My observations of him as well in the classroom. So, for example, for the week of November 4th, Jake had an average of 3 to 4 outbursts, and that usually lasted anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes. These outbursts mostly occur when he does not want to partake in individual independent activities or when he's asked to stay on task and to stop whatever distracting behavior that he is doing. Other behaviors I'm witnessing in the classroom are his tendencies to argue with myself and any of the other teachers in the classroom or at his specials. And he also has a tendency to ignore the requests of the teachers, and he persists with intentional disruptions such as making silly noises or movements.
Thank you for sharing with us. As discussed in our previous meetings, these behaviors are very common with oppositional defiant disorder, ODD, often as a result of ADHD. What attempts have you made to help alleviate these behaviors?
While I have made many attempts to move Jake when necessary to other areas of the classroom during instructional times, for example, when we're giving instruction at the carpet, he has the option to sit at his seat if he feels that he can't control his impulses. I have also arranged his desk so that he is close to my desk. That way I can better manage and monitor him and stop any undesirable behaviors quickly and efficiently. When Jake becomes uncontrollable, I do suggest to him that he takes a walk or a bathroom break.
I agree with your strategy. It does appear that Jake is displaying signs of OD day, and having him get up and move around the classroom is an effective strategy for managing his aggression and impulses, as long as it doesn't affect his ability to complete his work. Once we come up with an effective Tier 3 intervention plan, I do have some other suggestions that we can implement in the classroom. We will monitor Jake's progress as he responds to the interventions that we will have you implement.
That would be great to discuss when designing the intervention plan. Why don't we take a look at how Jake is doing academically? Ms. Jones, can you share the data from Jake's assessments?
Sure. Let's discuss his progress thus far in 3rd grade. After administering various assessments over the summer and beginning of the year screening process, I have the result scores for these assessments, which give us an idea of Jake's academic strengths. On the cognitive abilities test, Jake scored above the 90th percentile in the verbal and quantitative reasoning subtests, which is indicative of his academic strengths. During the fall universal screening, Jake's performance on the Ames Web Math Computation and Math Concepts and Applications subtests showed he was well above average compared to the national norms. According to the developmental reading assessment, I assessed Jake's independent reading level at a level 30, which is slightly above where the incoming 3rd grade should be in the fall.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, as I've seen Jake turn in excellent work when he's actually able to control his behaviors and get his work done. But on the occasions where he has an off day, you can see how these behaviors affect his academic work. Ms. Carvalho, should we have Ms. Ullman share the data she has collected?
Yes, why don't we discuss some of Ms. Ullman's findings after administering the Connors Teacher Rating Scale assessment.
So I have the results from that rating scale. As you can see, there are interesting findings from the CTRS-RL. It showed that on the oppositional subtest, Jake's raw score was a 12, which is markedly atypical and indicates a significant problem. This would explain his difficulties with arguing with the teacher and tendency to ignore requests. His raw score for the hyperactivity subtest, as you can see, was an 11, which is also atypical and cause for concern, as we know he is medicated for ADHD due to his difficulties sitting still, inability to stay on task, and restless and impulsive behaviors. Another subtest Jake was assessed on was the emotional ability subtest, which his raw score was a 6. This is moderately atypical, which relates to his emotional state and how he gets angered easily. The last subtest that showed atypical signs of a potential problem was Jake's score for socialization. His raw score was a 13, which is mildly atypical, showing signs of possible problem where he has few friends and may sometimes feel emotionally distant from peers.
Well, I feel that these results have definitely painted a general picture of what I'm seeing in the classroom. There definitely needs to be put in place other interventions to help Jake cope in the classroom with his teachers and his peers.
Thank you for sharing this data with us. I think it is time for us to discuss the Tier 3 behavioral intervention plan that needs to be put in place in order for Jake to function in the general education classroom with his peers. Ms. Apollonio, what goals do you have for Jake after discussing your concerns and analyzing the data?
Well, as his general education teacher, my goals for Jake would be to better control or manage his aggression and impulses in a positive way. In addition, Jake's ability to follow directions and not engage in any argumentative discussion should be improved.
I do have some suggestions that I feel will greatly improve Jake's ability to control his distractible movements and impulsivity. I would like to provide him with a therapy cushion. This will allow Jake to move around in his seat without creating a distraction to his classmates. We will also give him a stress ball. When Jake is feeling uncomfortable where he might act out, he can squeeze the ball and release those frustrations. And then a hand signal. When Jake is feeling like he needs a breather, he can gesture to Miss Apollonio, and that allows him to get up and take a walk in the hallway. It just allows him to take a little breather and pull himself away from the situation, and allows Miss Apollonio to know that something is going on with Jake. And finally, a quiet corner. If Jake is feeling like he is being distracted by his classmates, he can get up and sit in the corner of a room and work quietly by himself.
I think these are definitely great recommendations, and I would love to give Jake access to these accommodations as soon as possible. I'm interested to see how they can help Jake's distractible movements and his impulsivity. How often do you feel that you should meet with Jake one-on-one to discuss his progress and how he's doing with the accommodations that we'll be providing him?
I believe meeting with Jake once in a 6-day cycle would be sufficient at this time for a 30-minute period.
I definitely think that would be helpful. I'd say let's see how he does, and then we can reevaluate in a few weeks if necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Montemuro, for your recommendations. Since Ms. Apollonio agrees with your plan, let's put it into action as soon as possible. Now, Ms. Ullman, what are your recommendations for Jake in terms of his behavior modification plan?
Well, here I have his behavior chart that I've come up with. We will be trying to attain the behavioral goals that will be put into place as we enter the Tier 3 stage of the RTI process. This will require an intensive intervention plan to help Jake control his behavior, aggression, and impulses in and outside the classroom. So the behavior modification plan is in chart form. It addresses the top 3 concerns that Ms. Apollonio has expressed to us. Jake's behavior will be assessed at the end of each activity for all content areas addressed throughout the school day. Jake will have the opportunity to self-assess his own behaviors. These behaviors are based on the goals. 1, whether or not he was able to follow directions or requests without having to engage in an argumentative discussion. If he was able to respect others in and outside the class without any physical or verbal aggression. Third, if he can participate appropriately by not disrupting the class with his impulsivity, such as screaming or making silly sounds or noises in the middle of the class during instruction, running across the room, or banging his chair against the floor aggressively. The student will physically see this chart after each academic domain has been completed and will converse with the teacher about his behaviors. Finally, Jake will be rewarded points on a scale of 0 to 4 based on how well he was able to control these behaviors after each instructional period.
I'm excited to get started with implementing and recording Jake's progress using the mentioned behavior modification chart. It will help me better manage when and why Jake displays certain undesirable behaviors, and I think it will also allow him to monitor himself as well. So how often, Ms. Ullman, will you be meeting with him for counseling?
I would like to start off with meeting with Jake once in a 6-day cycle for 45 minutes. During this time, I will speak to Jake about how the plan is going for him and his perspective on his progress and behavior in the classroom.
Well, thank you, everyone. This sounds like an effective plan. The next step at this point in time would be to inform Jake's parents and get their feedback on the intervention plan we have established today. I would like to thank all of you for attending and participating in Jake's intervention plan at the Tier 3 level. I would like for us to come together again in about 6 to 8 weeks to analyze Jake's progress and see if we need to reevaluate the plan or make any adjustments. We will all stay in touch. Please let me know if you have any further questions or concerns. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.